Okay. Oh, there's that voice. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Unity of Missoula, November 1st, 2020. And thank you for all of you on Zoom. And possibly somebody may well get this thing on the YouTube too. So, several months ago, almost 3 months ago, I was asked to speak on the topic of self-care. Self-care, what an interesting idea. 3 months ago, we were pretty much thinking we were getting past the COVID thing, and we had lots of people just moving to Montana from heavily infected areas. Prices of houses went up. It was just hilarious. But we thought that was going to be the end of it, and it wasn't. Now we're into our third wave of this. We've been shut down for 8 months, I believe. And the world is seeming kind of strange. For myself, it's been very difficult to understand that nearly over 200,000 people in this country have died from this disease or complications of this disease. And as I was thinking about this morning before I started talking, all I could think was, I haven't really even tried to know how many people worldwide have died, because that number frightens me so much. And the idea that we can't hug one another here, we haven't had a meal together for so long. I'm truly looking forward to that. The day that the church service is filled and we have a meal together downstairs again. It's one of the things that really, really I'm looking forward to. It's been difficult. It's going to continue to be difficult because this is not over, not by a long shot. And like I said, we're not in this alone. We're in it with a whole entire Earth, planet, humanity's dealing with this. And I can't think of a better topic to be able to talk about than self-care today. The first thing I did was I read the little booklet. That was pretty good. Then I got on the internet. Oh, and I found all kinds of things. Look at this. Okay, which way do I go? Self-care assessment. There must have been 30 or 40 of these on the internet. Things you can ask yourself and check out to see if you have how your physical self-care is, how your psychological self-care is. Let's see. Your emotional self-care. Oh, and a bunch more. All kinds of things of self-care. But that really didn't inform me about what I would speak about. So, as life would have it, I went to the food farm because I'm always hungry. And look what I found. Self-care. Let's see, I just the wrong way. Self-care, New York Times, 1,000 articles about how to take care of yourself. They're really well written. They're beautiful pictures. And that didn't help me say anything at all either. It was depressing. In fact, of the matter is, last week was a depressing week for me. I cried 3 or 4 times. Just cried. No reason, it didn't seem. I just cried. And as I talked to my friends and people here at the church and other places, all I heard was, me too. I was crying too last week. It's been difficult, folks. It continues to be difficult. And as I thought about why I was crying, I realized I was grieving. Grieving for this world. Grieving for all those who have lost loved ones in this pandemic. Grieving the social injustice and the political unrest that we are all experiencing. And I grieve for my children, my 3 daughters, who I hadn't heard from in weeks until I got done crying. And it didn't seem to matter how kind Louise was to me, my loving wife, how much she held me and things. I could not help or stop crying. I was grieving from the deepest part of my soul. I felt alone and lonely, and I was struggling. And then one night after Louise's, she's in the process of making a photo album of her family history for her oldest granddaughter that was adopted out many years ago, 50 some years ago, I think now. And she came down to show me pictures of my daughter Vanessa at her daughter's wedding. This beautiful 16-year-old girl that I haven't seen in 15 years. And I wept. And I wept, and she held me. And as she held me, something shifted inside me. Something very deep inside me began to change. And in the next few days, my prayer and meditation time became more peaceful. I became willing to look at the world with different eyes and feel it differently. And then I picked up the little book, this nurturing book that we've been taking these talks out of, and I swear I read it before, but somebody came over in the night and put in different pages for me to read. Now, if you don't believe that, I don't blame you, but it's the truth. I reread this thing, and then I thought, oh my goodness, why did I have to take so long? I could have read this book in the first place. So I want to read the very first paragraph on this thing. It says, what is self-care? And this is what it says. Self-care is being willing and committed to rejuvenating your soul and finding your center. The place of unshakable peace and stability where you can weather the storms of life. Being intentional in your self-care practice is the greatest act of love that we can give ourselves. The greatest act of love that we can give ourselves. That's compassion. And that's the main emphasis of what I want to talk about today, is compassion, self-compassion, loving ourselves. And she uses some really interesting words in here. You have to be willing and committed. And as Linda indicated in the talk, that I don't seem to be able to give one of these talks without talking about what I still like referring to as the tenets of this church. Being committed, you're making a choice. Being willing, you're making a choice. The tenet says we create our lives by what we choose to think, feel, and believe. I think we can shorten it down. We create our lives by what we choose to choose, period. What we choose creates our lives. So, in terms of self-care, are you choosing to take a compassionate look at yourself? Are you willing to be as compassionate towards yourself as you are to all those people that you meet in the world that need a helping hand. I was out getting something out of the mask out of my car this morning, and some of my neighbors dropped by, and they said, "Oh," one of them I hadn't met before, and she said, "Oh, you're Roger." I said, "Well, yeah, what did I do?" "Oh, I just really love it when you remove the snow from our front walk." And I said, "Well, it's actually easier to turn that snowblower around at the end of the block than it is in the middle of the block. So I'm really doing it for myself." But those kinds of things, that compassionate act that we give other people without thinking. How many people have you given money to just because you felt the need they had a need? How many people have you called during this pandemic and talked to them because you just needed to talk to them? I know I called Rich Rothermel the other day because I just love talking to him and I miss him so much. And we talked for a half an hour or so, and I got caught up a little bit. But that was a compassion for him, but truly more compassion for myself. That I needed to hear his voice. I need to come to that book group on Tuesdays. I mean, how much fun is it to go talk about a book called Bliss Brain? We laughed so hard last week. I don't know if we talked about the book at all, but we certainly laughed a lot. We're being compassionate to ourselves when we allow ourselves to eat good food, when we take the time to exercise and help our body feel good. We're being compassionate to ourselves when we take the time to take care of our spiritual needs, to pray and meditate. We're being compassionate when we surround ourselves with people who love us back. And that doesn't happen all the time. There's people we love, and they don't even know it. And there are people who we love, and they love us back. We need to surround ourselves with those people to help us fill ourselves up. And again, I'm going to go back to the author's words here. Being intentional in your self-care practice is the greatest compassionate thing we can do for ourselves. It takes us to a place of unshakable peace and stability where we can weather the storms of life. To that place inside ourselves, that place we find in our meditative times, in our prayer times. That place where we find time to sit quietly and hear that still small voice. It's very small in my case. It's very, very quiet. I have to listen really, really hard still. But how can being quiet for 15 minutes make one feel better? How can focusing on the divine within us make us feel better? It brings it forward into our lives. Through affirmative prayer and meditation, we make direct contact with God and bring the good into our lives. That may be the greatest piece of self-care that we can do. I think all that other stuff matters, but I'm at the point of believing it is so important. And then back to that idea of choice. Are you willing? Are you committed to taking care of yourself, to your spiritual time? To bring yourself into that place of peace and stability that allow you to survive in this world, in this pandemic time. Just think about that. Before this, we had no idea what the meaning of that word was. We knew it was pan, meaning across, and a poisoning of things. But across a pandemic? No, we know what that means. We understand in the soul of our being what that means now. For 100 years, the people before us who suffered in 1918, I believe, in 1919, they knew. And now we know. And now it's our turn to take care of ourselves as they did back then. In closing, I want to, in this book, there's a 1 minute, 4-step process for self-care. Let me read this to you. There's just 4 steps. This is step 1. Pause. Take a moment to disconnect from the world of time and space and simply be. That's easy enough. Sit down, shut up, be quiet. That's what an article I read by Rowan Conrad a long time ago. A sitting practice, that's when you sit down and shut up. So sit down and shut up. Notice, the second one, number 2, notice. Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. Be a loving witness. Accept the moment as it is. That's, again, simple kind of thing. The third one, breathe. Take a couple deep breaths. This will take the attention away from the worrisome thoughts as you're allowing yourself to relax in a natural state, centered and aligned with your spirit. Just a couple breaths in and out, letting all that tension wash away from you and making that space for connection with our true spirit. And the fourth one, number 4, be grateful. Bring your attention to your heart. If you want to, place your hands on your heart. Don't do that though. Feel the heartbeat and thank yourself for taking a minute to care for your soul. And then find one thing to be grateful for in the moment. That is a really simple form of self-care. But the thing is, how long did that, I read it to you. It didn't take more than 3 minutes. So, in closing, self-care is compassion, self-compassion. It's taking care of ourselves in the many ways that we can do that. And bringing ourselves into alignment with our souls, with the true nature of ourselves, our Christ nature. That we might come into this world bringing that love, compassion, understanding, and love back into it, that it might be shared with all the other beings we run into daily. Let us be the light of the world. Let us bring joy and peace into the world. It's a big ask, but it's the best thing we can do for ourselves and this world and all of humanity. So let us take a minute right now in closing and do our meditation. And I'll remind you of these 4 steps once again. So if you would, close your eyes, get comfortable, take a big breath in, and we'll pause. Take a moment to disconnect from the world of time and space and simply be. Notice. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings and your body sensations. Be a loving witness. Accept the moment as it is. Breathe. Take a couple of deep breaths. Let all those worrisome thoughts float away. Relax into your natural state, your Christ state, your true self, centered and aligned with God. Be grateful. Be grateful for every breath you take. Think about something in your life in this moment that you're truly grateful for. And hold that in your heart and send love to that situation or that person, whatever it is. Fill that idea with your gratefulness, your compassion, your understanding, your love. And if you will now, open your eyes slowly and look around, whether you're there at home, at Zoom, or wherever, and see the person nearest you and realize that they are a blessing in your lives. And how much we truly, truly love and care for one another. So, namaste to you all. It's time to close this service. Thank you.